Yeah, ready when you are.
Hello, guys. We're back. We're live. I've got Josh with me. Josh, you all right, pal?
I'm not bad at all, mate. Yourself?
I'm brilliant. Brilliant. Had a busy weekend, but we're better at the start than talking about Jake Paul and Tommy Fury. Josh, finally, this fight happened. You said it on this channel. You wouldn't believe it until the two fellas walked into the ring and squared off, and the first bell went, and the first bell went indeed, and definitely they did square off. But Josh, I just want to get your view before we kind of unpick it a bit. Did it live up to the expectation? Did it live up to the excitement?
Uh, well, I think you had children that were obviously excited about it, but I think us more, and I keep saying it, but the hardcore boxing fans, I think we were very much more intrigued. I suppose is probably the correct word, but I suppose it did. I mean, I know me and you were speaking and. Post fight, I think the definite feeling was, Tommy Fury won in case you've lived under a rock for the last 48 hours. But it was like, who's the least shit? I can't think of any other way of explaining it because what we saw from Jake Paul, and I think you noticed it more with Tommy's limited boxing ability. He was flat-footed from not, he had little bits on his toes, but he reminded me, everyone will have been to a public gym. And, they're getting more and more. They have punch bags in. And, you always get that guy who thinks he is Floyd Mayweather. But he's actually, when you watch what he's doing, he's very flat-footed. His shots are all coming in from the same angle. And occasionally he'll throw in a quick hip turn to change direction. Not angle, just direction. And the guy thinks he's the living embodiment of Floyd Mayweather. And that is what I thought Jake Paul was like on Saturday. And on Sunday, and we saw that purely based off Tommy Fury's own limited boxing ability. But what we did see is that he does have some limited boxing ability. So, fair play to Tommy Fury. And I think I agreed with Carl Froch. He's done boxing fans a favour because that whole hype and intrigue around Jake Paul now has well and truly gone.
For the time being.
No, it's gone.
I've got a couple of comments I want to read out. Mickey C, evening mate, how you doing? Mickey C says, I won't lie, I was in London and watched it, and it was exactly that. Who was the shittest out the two? But you could tell Tommy's been in gyms all his life. Jay Paul is dreadful. Jab is shite. Mickey, just, being careful with his words there as always. But I think he raises a really good point there about Tommy being in gyms all his life, because that's what a lot of boxing fans were counting on. For those that don't know, I went for Jake Paul. Yes, I did. I know I'm embarrassing. I went for Jake Paul. Josh was the clever of the two. He went for Tommy Fury. But this was the key bit, wasn't it? People were saying that Tommy Fury's been around boxing gyms. At least he's boxed as an amateur. He's seen his half brother. He's seen his cousins, as in Hughie Fury. He's obviously his uncle Peter Fury. Do you think that was the element that made a difference, or do you think it was actually other things, technique and what have you? Because from what I saw, when the two boxers entered the ring, and you have a good look at the boxer's presentation on the ring walk, don't you, Josh? Tommy Fury looked as though he's bricking it. I'm not going to lie. He did look nervous. So do you think there was a difference, the fact that he's actually had more in-ring experience?
No, I think there's obviously that. I mean, firstly, before I say that, I did go for Tommy Fury, but I've got to be fair. I'd love to gloat, anyone who's seen this, I'd love to mock Ray for it. But I was a very late on Friday change, and it was only talking to some mates in the pub, and I thought, hang on, no, I did this.
Hey, I saved your bacon there. You didn't have to admit that, but
no. Honesty's the best policy. But what actually did it for me, Ray, was we're talking, and I did this with Liam Smith and Chris Eubank Jr. And I thought that was when you thought about it. Eddie Earn said it as well. No, Liam Smith was probably always going to win that fight, but I was late to the party. But I will still take the win. That is 10-9 to me now on predictions. But there's some big fights coming up. I think sadly that may change, but we'll get to that. But now, as for Sunday, Tommy Fury, He looked more confident of the two during the fight week. But I think he had Tyson in his ear, who has been there, done that, got the T-shirt. And I honestly think that coaching is just invaluable to him, as it would be to any fighter. And I thought Jake Paul they sort of swapped. Jake Paul looked quite nervous during fight week. I thought he wasn't that same cocky brash. Whether that was because he'd spoke a lot about the Fury family and was thinking, in reality they're a bunch of, the traveling community are a bit feisty, shall we say. So he could have got filled in at any moment. But then, as you say, come fight night, it seemed to swap. Tommy Fury seemed the more nervous of the two, and Jake Paul seemed a bit more confident. That was how I felt. But I just think when overall, the experience of being around it his whole life shone through. A picture did the rounds and went a little bit viral on Sunday night, Monday morning, of Tommy Fury in the ring when Fury fought Klitschko, obviously back in 2015. And Tommy's pretty much a kid at this point. He's 15, 16.
Yeah.
When you start to see things like that, he's been around it forever, hasn't he? So he can't, not that he couldn't have lost, because he could have lost, obviously. But I just think overall, I think every fan that gave Jake Paul a good chance or picked him, yourself here included, and me up until Friday, we're victims of buying into the hype. That's how I think we're all. I think we weren't until the Anderson Silva fight. But however you broke it down, Anderson Silva is a bona fide fighting man of serious, serious quality. So when Jake Paul beat him, that's when I bought into the hype, because I thought, well, hang on a minute, there's no knocking Anderson Silva. Maybe because Tommy Fury's record is still shit. We can't get around that. It's a shocking record for 9-0 or 8-0, whatever he is now.
But this is where I've got to come in, Josh. And this is where I've got to come in. And this is where I've got to come in, because yes, he did beat Anderson Silva in pretty decent fashion. But then when you look at the opponents that Tommy Fury's been in with, who, by all accounts, have had probably worse records than the opponents Jake Paul's been in with, and he's not come to be dispatched of those. That's where you've got to question, okay, it's all right being around these boxers. It's all right being around and having the same surname and having the half brother and having the dad, having the uncles. But then how's that translating into the ring thus far? In my opinion, it hadn't done. And Mickey kind of makes a good point. He's obviously rinsed me here. Mickey says Tommy always leaves himself open, and Jake Paul has banged legit fighters out with power, which was the point I was referencing there. Tommy couldn't finish a Sunday dinner with power. Again, which is another really good point. Not surprised he went for Paul Ray. Well, thanks very much, Mickey. Thanks for backing me up. But yeah, and he says here again, funniest thing was Carl Froch and his absolute disgust. Horrible for legit fighters who've worked their whole lives, and his plum comes in and earns all their money. And yeah, two really good points that Mickey's made there. We'll break it down. We'll go on the first bit that Tommy really didn't, for the opponents Tommy's faced, he should have made a better job of them than he had done, which puts some reasonable doubt into people's mind. Do you not think it was a case of Tommy's performances rather than people buying into a Jake Paul hype train, Josh?
I think it's a mix of the two. I think people bought into the Paul hype train, and I think people also, maybe we read too much. And again, I am tarring myself with this brush. I'm not sat here saying I knew it all, because I definitely didn't. But I think it was a mix of the two, the Paul hype train, and I think we've all read too much into Tommy's previous performances. Was he, especially when he fought like on the Jake Paul undercard for, was it Woodley 2 or whenever it would, maybe Woodley 1, because it's been going on that long. Yes, he put in a bad performance, but had he have gone in there, yeah, but had he have gone in and sparked him in a minute, would Jake Paul have took the fight, or would he have thought, oh, hang on, I don't want none of that? Because let's not forget, this was Jake Paul's chance to get a boxer on his record. So that was, okay, there was the Saudi money involved, and it's, like Jake Paul said, he's made 25 million. He works out to 25 million quid for this. But did we read too much into Tommy Fury's negative performances then with the Paul hype, and that's how and a lot of us came to the same conclusion. I mean, there's another great comment here. I'll just give it to you over, Ray.
Yeah. MGR, thanks very much for joining us, mate. Says it was a 50-50 fight. Jake Paul would beat a number of boxers at that level. Go and look at Wilder's first 10 opponents. Well, it can't be ignored. Whether or not Jake Paul definitely would have beaten the opponents that Tommy Fury would have faced. But after seeing the performance from both two, obviously Jake Paul's from the States, so he can't apply it to this next question. But on that basis of that Tommy Fury performance, is he better suited to this misfit world of boxing? Or can you give him a credible run, at least at the southern area, potentially English? I mean, this fight was at 180, 183, 184. If he can boil down to light heavyweight, do you think he's got a chance there?
It depends what he wants. I mean, my missus watched him on Love Island, so it's the first fight in a while she actually watched with me. But apparently on there, he was talking about winning world titles. So it all depends what realistically in his own mind he wants to achieve. If he's going to be, and there's nothing wrong with it, if he's going to be a fighter that's happy with winning a central area title, then yeah, do you know what? I'd respect if he was like, I've got limited boxing ability, a central area title for me, maybe an English. You never know. We see vacant title fights. His name value will help him, get those sorts of fights. Then I could see him going for it, but he's certainly no more than an English title challenger, possibly holder in the right fight. But, his limitations are kind of his own fault, because this whole Jake Paul thing's been going on over 2 years. Before that, he's just not been active enough for a prospect coming through. Comparing to Campbell Hatton and Ray, before, I know we've got our reservations around Campbell Hatton, but he's been a pro for 18 months to come in 2 years, and he's at 9-10-0. Tommy Fury's first fight was like 4 or 5 years ago, and they're at the same point. You need to be fighting regularly, you need to be active, you need to be in the gym permanently, and with his lifestyle across social media, he just can't be doing that. So really, I think he's kind of
and that's why I've asked, is he not better suited?
This is where I'm getting to, yeah.
I'll go on, let you finish the point.
Yeah, no, he shoehorned himself into that misfits world because he's clearly not lived the life. We saw him miss weight for his November exhibition. Now he's not a cruiserweight, but he's there was no fat on him, so I think he would maybe be tight at 175. So he's in no man's land there. So I think he really has shoehorned himself into, realistically, they'll do the Jake Paul rematch because of the knockdown and the split decision win. If he comes through that, which he should, Jake Paul would have to learn how to box in 6 months. And if he's not managed it in 3 years, he's not going to do it in 6 months. And then it's KSI, isn't it, as a cash-out fight, as the last one. Maybe that happens twice. I don't know. It depends. And don't get me wrong, he'll make a lot of money. And the sad thing is, as has just been mentioned earlier, he'll earn more money possibly for 2 Jake Paul fights and a KSI fight than some boxers earn through their whole career. A lot of boxers, in fact, as well. And that is the bit. And I'm not being a purist. I'm not being negative. But that's heartbreaking for me. I don't know how everybody else feels about it.
Yeah, another point there from Mickey C. I think Tommy should have put him away with ease. He's supposed to be a professional boxer. The way he was crying after the bell, after beating a YouTuber, was embarrassing for me. I do give Paul credit. Another great point there. I think Josh made a great point on our socials with the after the fight interview, comparing it to Rocky's famous Adrian sort of speech, which I thought was hilarious, and it was kind of on the same sort of ilk. I suppose to be fair to Tommy Fury, there was a lot of pressure on him, not just from his family, from his dad, but I imagine from the whole boxing community. Going back to Carl Froch and his comments there. MGR comes back with us again, says Tommy could easily get to a European level. Have you seen some of the fighters who have won titles at that level? Piss poor. He's a 23-year-old, 8-fight novice. Judge him after 15, 20 fights. Fair enough, but in my opinion, I would have to disagree on the basis that you can usually tell when a fighter's between 8 and 10 fights if they're going to get to that level or not. Josh, what do you think? You probably disagree with what I'm saying there.
No, well, just firstly, MJR, I believe you are you mic off. You comment on a lot of our Instagram stuff, so just confirm if you are, because I know we spoke earlier saying that you'd be on. I think it's tough because he's in the wrong division. And we just said there he's at sort of in the 180s weight wise. He might struggle to get to 175. It is you, Mike. Yeah, but pleasure to have you on, mate. If you haven't, smash that subscribe button and like button for us. But I think the issue is at 175, there's even domestically, there's some serious talent. Dan Aziz, for example. No, that's what I mean. Dan Aziz, who's probably at the bottom of that domestic group, Dan Aziz smashes him to bits. And I just a quick note, I love what Dan Aziz is doing as well, going over to France and really chasing these fights and title fights. And also 15 to 20 fights. When on earth is Tommy Fury going to have 15 to 20 fights? He's fighting twice a year. So, he's 23 now. He'll be 30 by the time, unless he picks up his rate of activity and commits, he'll be 30 by the time he's had 20 fights. So I do get where Mike's coming from with that comment. I really do. But he's got to commit to it. And if he's not going to commit to it as a younger man, anyone who's had kids knows, which he's now had, it gets harder to commit, not easier. So they're my worries for him, and they're where I think he'll have his limitations. Don't get me wrong, there are some divisions, I'm not going to name them, where possibly he could get to European because they're a shallower division. But at light heavyweight, if he can boil himself down to it, I think even domestically for British level, he gets smashed to bits.
Even a cruiserweight, I mean, I don't see him being better than the current top 15 domestically, even the top 20. I know we're saying he's an 8-fight novice, but usually get an inkling if somebody's between 8 and 10 fights of just relatively how far they can go. Usually after that 10-fight period, if they're any good, they're at a northern area, central area, southern area, ready for an English, possibly. You don't get that with Tommy Fury at all. Jake Paul was arguably his first opponent with a winning record, isn't a proper winning record. And Jake Paul is not a boxer by any accounts. I know Big John Fury was saying he can call himself a professional boxer, but that's debatable. I would like to see Tommy Fury, take it seriously from now on in. But I wonder whether or not the lifestyle, the pull, the silk pajamas, as Marvin Havila would say, is probably a bit too comfortable for now. MGR comes and says you're comparing him with fighters now who won't be there in 3 years' time. Conor Benn was shocking in his first 10 fights. Everyone said he's not going to get to world level. Josh, do you want to get to that one?
No, I'd agree. But Conor, this is the thing I'll not move on from, Mike. Conor Benn committed to it. It's well documented with the shouldering content around the pandemic that Matchroom did, that Conor Benn lived in the gym. Conor Benn, that he's put in the shifts with Tony Sims. He's done the long days. He's been first in the gym, last out the gym. So, and, obviously now I suppose you can't get away from it. People will also talk about this since the Formella fight when Conor Benn started to look like a real force.
He was the most improved fighter during the pandemic, wasn't he? Everyone said that.
He was, but also now people will argue since the Formella fight when he started to earn this potential killer reputation, has he been juicing? I know he's been found innocent, but more will come out on that. But the people will throw that argument into it. But he's still committed to boxing. I agree with you. If Tommy Fury is young enough, if he thought, right, I'm committing, I'd back him to win a central area title now. I think he showed enough boxing ability, with the right opponent. Yeah, because he can, even in a 12-week camp, Ray, I see the look there, and I know where you're coming from, but even in a 12-week camp, Tommy Fury can train every single day for that. with the Central Area champion at cruiserweight. I'd have to look at who it is, but I'd put good money on the fact that they're working, they're training around a job. So Tommy Fury should still win a Central Area title. You then look at an English title, which is where I'm saying, yeah, he's probably going to find his limitations because you're starting to come across that jump is quite big. But he's got to commit. If he commits, Mike, I'm with you. There's a chance, but I just can't see him committing.
Again, I've got to disagree. I mean, okay, we'll look at the likes of people like at the top end of the scale, Ben Whittaker. Ben Whittaker's a young man, light heavyweight. He's going to be around the top echelons of the sport. Even the likes of Willie Hutchinson. He's around 24, 25 years of age. He's going to be around there. The lad that lost on a Frank Warren show, Karol Atoma, half Nigerian, half British. He's a little bit older than Tommy Fury, but he's still going to be around in 3 years' time. Then you have the kids that from at super middleweight want to move up as well. But also, as well as those, you've also got the fact that fundamentally he's found lacking. I mean, Josh will probably come on to it when he breaks down the fight, but Tommy Fury in the 8th round, we'll not mention it, but we're going to have to come to it, Josh. He was dropped by a jab from Jake Paul. Now, if you're getting dropped by a jab by somebody who we're all saying isn't a boxer, that doesn't sound very good for me. That doesn't speak well. That doesn't sound like somebody who's going to go on from that and go on and win titles. Getting dropped by a jab in the last round. Fair enough, he went to go and dominate the round, but it doesn't sound. When you think of it like that, it sounds worrying, don't you think, Josh?
No, I do 100%. I mean, he tried to say it was a slip. He definitely wasn't hurt. When they slowed it down, he was off balance and whatnot. But it was a knockdown. And like you say, Ray, if you've got a serious aspiration of doing anything in the sport, Jake Paul's not the one to be putting you on your arse. And yeah, it's a worrying sign. I mean, Mickey's comment here, if you're Tommy Fury and you can fight YouTubers or celebrities and earn more than proper fighters, and you haven't had to commit yet at the age of 23, you're not going to commit. You're going to take the easy cheese. I find myself often agreeing with Mickey C, but yeah, I think he's bang on it. Ray, I'll hand this over to you because, long live Jar. Great to have you in the chat, mate. We've not had you, I don't recognise your name, so smash that like and subscribe button. But Ray, I'll hand that to you.
Yeah, it's a horrible ref. Jake would have done just enough to win a split if he never lost a point, similar to Logan versus KSI. He's also come at us again saying Jake dropped Tommy same way he dropped Anderson Silva. And another point from him, Jake's performance was ass, but I think he did just enough to get the nod. So sounds as though he's disagreeing with your point of view. Can you see where he's coming from, no, Josh?
No, honestly, I mean, I had it 4-1 after 5. Then the points started getting deducted. Let's not forget Tommy Fury had a point took off him as well. So effectively that equalised it back up because they both had a point took.
Is that 4-1 to Tommy?
Yeah, 4-1 to Tommy. I thought he was winning him convincingly. As the fight wore on, let's not forget punch stats. Tommy Fury outlanded him every single round. I thought, I just don't get. I get what he's saying there. Obviously, Tommy got dropped by a jab, but for me, 76-73 was probably right for Tommy Fury, which obviously was 2 of the cards. Carl Froch had it as that, and obviously the knockdown helped to close that gap. But yeah, no, great to have you in the chat, but I can't agree with that one myself.
Just as another point that Longley Jar is saying, Jake hit Tommy with a Ryan Garcia punch. And this is a point I want to get out to people in the chat as well as Josh. What do we make of Jake Paul wearing different coloured gloves? Because that doesn't happen in professional boxing. You wear the same colour gloves. Now, Josh, one glove was a black glove, and the other glove was a white glove. The black glove, unless I'm wrong, was the one that landed on Tommy Fury. What do you make of that? Because that's, I can't call it cheating, but it isn't allowed. It isn't allowed. So I suppose there's an argument to say it's cheating. But black and white, I mean, it's going to be harder to see the black glove, surely.
Yeah, again, it's just these little things that I think is, and again, I'm using the phrase again, but as hardcore fans, we're a bit of sticklers for possibly. His shoes as well were opposite colour. That bugged me a little bit. But I suppose it adds to the show element that this is all about. And, it's not, it is professional boxing, but it's not, isn't it? This isn't two guys who've trained hard all their lives for this big main event Saudi show. This is this isn't their Everest. They do other things. So it's not for me, really. I don't think it should have been allowed, but I get why it did, because it's the whole show element, isn't it?
Yeah. And Long Live Jar says, Jake's still my personal favourite fighter. Well, and hope he wins the rematch with a knockout. Well, I believe he should have won that fight with a knockout, but unfortunately it wasn't to be. Who knows? It looks as though the rematch is going to happen.
Yeah, I will say, actually, in fairness on that point, if he knocked Tommy Fury down off a jab, he has got the potential to knock Tommy Fury out. So at least this is a rematch where we're not going into this thinking there's no way it's a different outcome. This isn't Haney Kambosos where, there is still a bit of an intrigue around it. I can't see it selling as well as the first fight, but, I'm just trying to help Long Live Jar a little bit here. Like, I can see that possibility.
Yeah. And Mickey says, must have been watching the tune on Sunday. He could have worn one of them giant gloves off it to knock out back way in the day, and he still shouldn't have been beating Tommy. Well, to be fair, when you look at the reputations of both guys and the history of both guys, it should have been a comfortable win for Tommy Fury. Tommy Fury really should have stopped him, but it didn't quite happen that way, Mickey. It sounded a bit laboured by all accounts. But speaking of laboured, we've got to come on to it, Josh. There was another circus event, a boxing event, this time on Saturday. Aaron Chalmers versus Floyd Mayweather. Well, Josh, where do we start with that one?
Well, this is a double-edged sword because, was there a boxing event? We don't know because nobody turned up, which was half the problem. But, Geordie's here. Now, this is the bit that actually made me laugh because 50,000 Geordies descended on London on this weekend, obviously for the football, which, by the way, was a lovely...
it was more like 100,000, mate. Let's get it right.
Even better. But Aaron Chalmers, ex-Geordie Shore, has fought on a lot of Newcastle shows in terms of MMA and obviously his recent boxing career. So potentially 100,000 Geordies have descended on the capital. You're fighting Floyd Mayweather, and 3 of them turned up to watch. How gutted are you if you're Aaron Chalmers? Like, literally, you couldn't have got this any lucky because obviously Newcastle to London, it's a long way to attract a travelling fan. But they're there for the football and they didn't even bother to come and watch you fight. I feel for the guy, but as far as the fight goes, there's not much point talking about it. Mayweather won every round convincingly, but there's no official winner because it's an exhibition. And it was just bizarre. I worry now that Mayweather is actually bordering on tarnishing the legacy for me. I don't know what you think on that, Ray.
Really? I mean, you've got to remember as well, what people forget is George Foreman, Muhammad Ali, they all had exhibitions. Their legacies haven't been tarnished. So why is Floyd's going to be tarnished?
Well, for me, he's fighting absolute nobodies. He's doing it every couple of months, which cheapens it. This was badly promoted. It was just a bad event. I mean, it was actually one of our most successful tweets that we've ever done when I said, bad promotion, bad event, just shit show all round. There's no other way of really beating around the bush about it. A talent like Floyd Mayweather, him making his UK debut on any platform in an exhibition, a professional fight, that should be big, big news. I'd read one report last week that one of the reasons the top Fury Paul card was Sunday was because they knew Mayweather had got the O2 originally. If that's true or not, I don't know, but it stands to reason. If Floyd Mayweather had come over here and he fought Ricky Hatton, that was talked about in an exhibition. Manny Pacquiao's talking about fighting again. If one of those exhibitions, or even Barrera, he's just done one, should still be fit. Marquez, anyone, and I know they've fought as professionals years ago, but if he'd have fought all of these people, or one of these people would buy into this fight. People would be there. A TV network would have picked it up. You wouldn't be charging £32.95 for it, which is another reason it won't sell very well.
Yeah.
This is where I'm talking about the tarnished legacy, because if it was a tenner on Fight TV or whatever, people might have bought it. But at £32.95, you're just doing that all the time with the people who are actually going to buy the fight. Aaron Chalmers clearly isn't a draw because nobody's bothered to turn up to watch it. The whole thing is just, I hate to say it, I really do, but it's embarrassing.
And the one thing I would say about Mayweather is it doesn't look as though it's going to end anytime soon, though. Clearly he's having fun with it. Could this be a start of a tour, though, instead of it, having these fights in Japan and the Far East? Could he be thinking, actually, I could be going through all the UK reality TV stars instead of fighting somebody like a Ricky Hatton in a rematch, or Marcos Antonio Barrera, or even an Amir Khan, if you like?
Yeah, I suppose it probably could be. But again, is it going to sell? Because at least with Aaron Chalmers, in all fairness to Aaron Chalmers, he had some success in MMA. He won his first boxing match. So, this wasn't him fighting Phil Mitchell off EastEnders, in terms of a TV actor. This is fighting someone with some limited fighting pedigree. And it didn't sell. I think exhibitions work. We've done the YouTube thing. That's happening regularly. Floyd Mayweather boxing the ears off a YouTuber. We've seen time and time again. We saw it with Deji. We saw it for chunks of the Logan Paul fight. There's no intrigue around that now. Floyd Mayweather, even at 46, is still streets ahead. So now he needs to fight proper names and he just needs to up the level. For me anyway.
Yeah, and Richie, evening mate, I hope you're well. He's come in and he says, "Hi guys, sorry I'm late. I was watching some of the build-up to the Floyd exhibition and it was quite sad. No one was interested in the slightest and he knew it. Who finances this? They must have lost some money." And then he comes and says, "I think in the UK, only a Floyd exhibition against a Hatton, a Khan, a Brook, a Barrera, etc., would sell. But UK boxing fans are hardcore and so right through this, and the young market don't care about Floyd." Very, very good points, Richie. Very, very good points. It looks as though Floyd Mayweather's only way of making money in this market in the UK is to fight perhaps an old name from a show and fight him in the UK, or fight one of our former boys as in a Brook, a Khan, or a Hatton. And unless he does so, you're going to have empty arenas. And I think perhaps another empty arena, because Floyd Mayweather, we all know, likes a dollar. He probably likes a pound note as well. He's not going to get many of them if he has the same outcome in terms of bums on seats like he did on Saturday night. And just finally, Chris says, "Time in my life I won't get back. Luckily, was only watching on Fire Stick. Fury won the fight 5-3, in my opinion." Chris scores the fight fair. We all know that, so it's going to be difficult to argue with that one. But yeah, guys, that's going to be it from us for tonight. Thanks very much for joining us in the chat, and thanks very much for sharing your opinions. And don't forget, guys, we've got lots of content to come. We've got a big card coming up this weekend in the Northeast, so we'll be doing doing a couple of videos on that. They'll be getting released during the week. So, guys, thank you very much. Take care. Josh, we'll catch you later in the week. And have a great evening.
You too.